for the evil night. Wear it.
If it eases your mind, it eases mine. Thank you.
Enter freely as my guest.
Your household keeps unusual hours.
I keep unusual hours. They follow my example.
Mina, forgive the tone. I think I am a prisoner.
Poor child, so far from home.
Who's there?
One for tomorrow, one for the week hence, one for a month. Your friends, we rest easy. Modern secrets are the easiest to keep.
Now it's time.
And held my hand without trembling. Though his memory still falters, I can feel my husband growing stronger each day.
Jonathan's looking much better. You must be relieved.
Enormously. Though he still fusses over me constantly.
Aye, laugh while you can. Dead don't always stay put. Mark me, ladies. There's a storm coming.
Lucy, stay back. His calling. Lucy! What are you doing? The guest. He's finally here.
Her fiancé, Arthur Homewood, hadn't left her side in days. Dr. Seward, a friend of Arthur's, could find no cause, no disease, no explanation, only that her blood was disappearing night after night. So he called the one man he thought might have answers, Professor Abraham Van Helsing, Seward's old mentor from Amsterdam, a man who had spent his life studying things most doctors refused to believe in. He knew exactly what he was dealing with. He ordered emergency transfusions, one after another, replacing the blood that kept being drained. Van Helsing lined every window and door with garlic and warned them not to remove it under any circumstances. For the first time in weeks, Lucy rested, but Van Helsing didn't. He knew whatever was feeding on her, had never understood the garlic. It filled the room with a terrible smell, and it seemed to upset her daughter. So that afternoon, while Lucy slept, she quietly removed it all. When Van Helsing returned that night, he saw it immediately. Every blossom was gone. It was over in seconds. A wolf tore through the window, and Lucy's mother was dead before she hit the ground. Lucy survived the night. Barely. Arthur stayed beside her, holding her hand, willing her to keep breathing. But something had broken. Whatever strength the transfusions had given her was gone. By morning, Lucy Westenra was dead. Van Helsing said nothing, but he knew this was not the end. For Lucy, it was only the beginning. Lucy's death, something strange began happening in Hampstead. Children were found wandering at night, pale, confused, with small wounds on their throats. The papers called the culprit the Bloofer Lady. No one had seen her clearly. All the children could describe was a pale woman in white, drawing them to her after dark. No one suspected the truth, that the woman luring them into the dark was Lucy Westenra. Though Seward refused to believe it, Van Helsing was convinced that Lucy had not stayed dead, that she was the one hunting children in Hampstead. So he brought Seward along to see for himself. And there was Lucy, not decayed, not cold, resting, with fresh blood on her mouth. Seward had spent his whole career trusting science, trusting what could be measured and explained. But now that was over now. Van Helsing told him there was only one way to free her. Van Helsing brought them to the tomb at midnight. There they would wait and see for themselves. She looked at him, and suddenly she didn't look like a predator anymore. She looked like the woman he'd asked to marry him. 3 weeks ago, he'd put a ring on her finger. Now he was standing over her coffin with a stake, and the choice was his. The cruelty left her face. And there she was, Lucy, at rest, for real this time. Of all of them, only Jonathan had seen the thing that did this. He'd slept under its roof, walked its halls, and escaped barely alive. Lucy was free. But the thing that did this to her was still out there, and it had already found its next victim. Addresses. There were 5 properties across London, purchased under his name while he was in Transylvania, and they started with the closest, Carfax Abbey. He'd seen crates like these before, stacked in the vaults beneath Dracula's castle. 50 had been shipped to England on the Demeter, and now they were here, in London, half a mile from where Mina slept. Van Helsing had a plan for them. Consecrate the soil so that Dracula could never rest in it again. One by one, they'd burn his safe ground out from under him. Dracula couldn't stop them from sanctifying the crates, but he could remind them he was watching. With 29 of the crates sanctified, they'd walked out, thinking they'd hurt him. They did not know that there were 21 other crates that had already been moved and scattered throughout the city. They thought they were hunting him, but the Count had already come for Mina. An asylum on the grounds near Carfax, a place for men whose minds had slipped beyond help. One of them was a patient named Renfield, who kept insisting someone was coming. Tonight, however, he'd gone quiet. Dr. Seward found him in his room, broken, barely breathing. He told Seward that the Master had come to him, offering him the promise of eternal life. All Renfield had to do was open the door, and he did. Seward and Van Helsing made their way to Mina's, but it was already too late. Dracula was there, and this time he wasn't feeding from her. The crucifix drove him off, and in an instant he vanished into the night. Mina was alive, but Van Helsing needed to know how far it had gone. The wafer burned where it touched her. Whatever Dracula had forced into her blood would remain until they destroyed him. Mina's scar had not faded. She told the men that if the change took hold, she didn't want to survive it, but they refused. They set out to find every last one of the earth boxes the Count had scattered across London. Without them, he'd have no shelter, no ground to rest in. They started in Bermondsey, then Mile End, then Whitechapel. By late afternoon, they'd burned through nearly all of them. Now only one location remained, a house in Piccadilly. The house smelled of copper and rot. This was the last of his lairs, and they knew he might be waiting for them inside. What came out wasn't blood, it was money, gold coins, provisions for a creature that was already planning to run. In just seconds, he was gone. They had taken his lairs, his earth, his shelter, and for the first time since he arrived in England, the Count had nothing. The others saw a monster driven out. Mina wasn't quite what she saw that night. Mina's scar hadn't faded, and Van Helsing believed the bond between her and Dracula could still be used. Under hypnosis, Mina could hear what Dracula heard, see what he saw. Waves, the creak of timber, foreign voices shouting above deck. He was aboard a ship, the Tsarina Catherine, bound east for the Black Sea. He was running home, back to Transylvania, to the safety of his castle. As long as the bond held, Mina would be able to track him. But this came at a cost, as every time she reached for him, the mark burned deeper. The ship would take him to the coast. From there, his coffin would travel by cart and river toward the castle, moving fast under guard. They had to stop it before it got there. Van Helsing split them into 3 groups to close in from different directions. Arthur and Seward would take a steam launch up the river. Jonathan and Quincy would ride north through the mountains on horseback. And Van Helsing would take Mina by sleigh, straight into the snow country, toward the castle itself. The hunters were closing in from all 3 directions, but if the coffin reached the castle before any of them reached the convoy, it was over. Mina grew weaker the farther east they traveled. She could still feel him, and what she felt wasn't a creature in flight, but something racing against the sun. Couldn't go any farther until dawn. He formed a ring of consecrated host around her, a barrier nothing unholy could cross. The wolves came first and circled them for hours, snapping, growling, but unable to set a paw inside the ring. That night, neither of them slept. Until just before dawn, the wolves went silent and pulled back, not leaving but making way. The three brides of Dracula, the same creatures Jonathan had encountered in the castle. Months ago, only this time they'd come for Mina, but Van Helsing drove them out. Back to the castle where Jonathan had been held captive, he now had no other choice but to follow them in. The three brides were waiting, but so was he. By dawn, their coffins were opened and their bodies put to rest. The creatures that had tried to claim Mina would never touch her again. There was no time to rest. Dracula's coffin was still moving south, guarded by a convoy of scrawny horsemen, and the sun wouldn't wait. Arthur and Seward had pushed upriver for 2 days, racing to cut off the convoy before it reached the castle. Jonathan and Quincy came overland, following reports of a guarded cart moving fast through the mountain passes. All 4 paths converged on the convoy at once, just as the sun began to drop. The Sisgani fought hard, but the hunters fought harder. They hadn't come this far to lose him now. Quincy took a bullet across the ribs, but he wouldn't stop moving. The sun was dropping fast, and inside the coffin, something stirred. And there he was, awake, aware, and out of time. Jonathan cut his throat, Quincy drove the blade home, and the thing that had haunted them across oceans and mountains ended in seconds, 400 years, gone like dust on the wind. The mark on Mina's forehead disappeared the moment he died. She was free. Quincy Morris had kept fighting long after the wound should have stopped him. Now, with Dracula gone, he let go. 7 years later, Jonathan and Mina named their son after the man who gave his life on that mountain. The world would never know what happened in those months. The blood, the terror, the castle in the mountains. But they remembered. And for the rest of their lives, they lived quietly and never left the sun.